Glad to have Stephanie with us. All of y'all. When I'm sitting there in the back, I'm listening to y'all talking to each other and laughing. It's always a very happy sound to hear people that love each other connecting. Appreciate BJ for nearly punching a big muscle guy out to make sure I kept my parking space. You have no idea what BJ goes through to hold me a parking space. It nearly got. I said, "Do what you got to do." Let the Lord use you. Those of you. Say what? Oh, really? Oh, y'all were all out there. Oh, y'all went all good on him. Uh-oh. I feel safe. I feel safe and seen. My tribe was out there fighting. That's good. Come on in. That's funny. Spirit of God, we acknowledge your presence. We acknowledge your everythingness, your I amness. God is everywhere. Where can we go from your presence? You know our down sitting and our uprising. God is in this place because we're here today, and where two or more are gathered together, there you are. There is a manifestation, a higher frequency of the revelation of the Christ. We decree that something special and unique and unprecedented will happen here today. No one is here by accident. Nobody's streaming live by accident. Nobody's listening to this podcast by accident. No one's watching YouTube by accident. Whoever is hearing what's going to be said here today is exactly where he or she is supposed to be. Yes. We thank you that the word is not bound. And we speak into this atmosphere and say, let there be light. Please remain standing. Y'all come on in. Let's do the Lord's Prayer. Beautiful. Our Father who art in heaven, presence of divine love and light that lives within us and within all of life, hallowed be thy name. We invoke the powerful creative nature of all that is sacred and holy. Thy kingdom come. We embrace the healing essence that is the kingdom of heaven within us. Thy will be done. We accept our greatest good as we align with our divine nature. On earth as it is in heaven, knowing that the affairs of our lives reflect our evolving consciousness. Give us this day our daily bread. Each day we receive great blessings from within and throughout all the activities of our lives. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We accept the divine nature of all things and all people, including ourselves, as we move away from judgment and toward greater awareness of divine presence. And lead us not into temptation. We shall be vigilant in expressing and experiencing the oneness with all life. But deliver us from evil as we are learning to live without fault-finding and suffering. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. For we accept the consciousness of divine perfection with all its power and glory right here, right now, and forever. Amen. And so it is. Tell somebody something good. Share some good news with somebody, then you may be seated. Or just say, I'm glad to be sitting next to you. Hey, bud. Love you. Glad you're here. And then you may have a seat. Glad y'all are here. A couple of things. First of all, our outreach this month is the World Central Kitchen. Isn't that the one that you mentioned last week? And it's funny because when I was thinking that, it was a confirmation, because I usually when I don't know what I'm going to do, I'll Google, like what are best charities, and that was the first one that came up. So you were in the flow, and they're doing a lot, even helping in Gaza right now, which is I think is very important. So that's who we're giving to this month. And couple of announcements. 2 weeks from today, we will not be here, so don't forget. We will be in Conyers. I don't know if you've ever heard of Conyers. It's a little community, I think, that way. You know, it's funny about, I'm sure I've told you this, but when I was a kid, it's funny how you speak things into existence. When I was a kid, I have two cousins that were born, we were born like in the same week. So we all, you know, we got driver's license the same. Well, our cousin Cindy, who's passed on now, but she got her license, and Mark and I didn't. So Cindy just really rubbed it in, you know, and we hated her for it. So we were at a Swilley function one time, and she got to leave, and I said, "Where do you think Cindy's going?" And he said, "She's going to cruise in Conyers." We didn't even know where Conyers was. It just sounded like a place where people cruise. And so for years, anytime we saw Cindy, it was just, you had to have been there, but it was like if Cindy wasn't at a family thing, she's not here, she's cruising in Conyers. And so years later, I mean, I knew it was in the metro area, but I wasn't familiar. I was doing a meeting in Augusta, and I was driving I-20 in, and I said, "Oh, this is Conyers." I was laughing. I said, "Mark, you're not going to believe this. I'm driving through Conyers right now, and I didn't see Cindy anywhere." And then like a year later, I had a church there. So for years, I've been cruising, like I spoke it into existence, because Mark and I would say that to each other. "Where you going?" "I'm going to cruise in Conyers." It's not really a funny story, but I think it's, thank you for your polite chuckles. I'll try to raise the comedy vibe a little bit. Anyway, we'll be at the Movement Church on August 31st, so I hope you'll all come out, be there with us. That's Judah's birthday, and he's asked me to come out. And then we've got Meditation Weekend number 26 coming up. 27. 27, good Lord. We're at Blue Ridge, Georgia. Our second time going to Blue Ridge, first time in the fall. And Blue Ridge is beautiful that time of year. So we're trying to coordinate. You know, there's a train they do there. One of the things is already, I can't believe people book that far in advance. But anyway, it'll work out. But we've already got as many people as were in St. Simon's have already signed up to go to this one. So it's going to be a good one. And those of you that never come to these, you need to stop disobeying God and stop living in rebellion. Don't worry, we've only done 26 of them. You've had plenty of time. But anyway, that's what is that? October 25th and 26th. Remember, 25, 26, 27 is the 25th and the 26th for the 27th one. Good Lord, now I've started these Roman numerals. Of course, somebody told me this next, when we get to 30, it's going to, don't Google that one. It's going to be Metron triple X. Like, no, it's not what it sounds like. It's the Roman numeral 30. They're like, this is the biggest one we've ever had. Everybody signed up for that one. Anywho, I think that was everything. Let's do about a 5-minute meditation before we get into the Word. If we can, bring the lights down, please. If you'll just sit up straight, both feet on the floor. Get yourself relaxed. You don't have to do a mudra. Just do whatever feels organic to you. Meditation is just about breathing. So we're going to inhale through the nose and hold it and out through the mouth. So let's go in and out. Inhale. Exhale. In. Out. You'll receive this word much better if you're in a relaxed state. You'll be more focused. In. Out. You're in a safe space. You're surrounded by love. Good things are happening in you and through you and for you and to you. yourself feel grateful. Let yourself feel serene. Inhale. Exhale. In. Out. Now we're just going to be quiet for about a minute. I'm not going to speak, but I just want you to let your thoughts settle down. Let yourself be conscious and aware. Those of you watching at home, you can meditate with us. Now we're going to do some affirmations. I am blessed. I am a blessing. I am. I am well. I am wellness. I am. I am whole. I am wholeness. I am. I am peaceful. I am peace. I am. Now let's get 3 more really good breaths. Breathe out of it. Inhale. Hold it. And out. And in. Out. One more good one. In. And out. Beautiful. Thank you, Charles. Welcome to the Metron Live podcast, coming to you from the Atlanta Theater, the beautiful Kirkwood neighborhood. Metron people, would you please welcome people of the planet Podcastia? We welcome you. We speak into this atmosphere once again and say, let there be light. I decree the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me to preach liberty to the captives. All right, we started a series last week. We're continuing it today and next week, called In a Beginning, vibrating to create the reality you want. And we're using possibly the most famous verse of Scripture in the Bible. Most anybody has a general knowledge of the Bible knows, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the original Hebrew, it doesn't say in the beginning, it says in a beginning, which has a lot of implication to it. The Concordant literal Old Testament captures that. This is Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. And this is the way it says it here. In a beginning, created by the Alueim, which is another way of saying the Elohim, which was translated into King James as God. In a beginning, created by the Elohim or Alueim, it's the same root as Allah, were the heavens and the earth. In the King James it says, and the Spirit of the Lord was it say brooding? Is that the word it uses? One of the translations says how. Anyway, the implication is there was like the way a mother hen broods over the chicks. It speaks of incubation, is what it is. Yet the earth became a chaos and vacant, and darkness was on the surface of the submerged chaos. Yet the spirit of the Alueim, and this is what's interesting, it doesn't say vibrated, it says is vibrating over the surface of the water, and saying is the Alueim. This is where King James says, and God said, let there be light. Here in the Hebrew it says, saying is the Alueim, become light, and it is becoming light. Okay? For our purposes, where we're going with this is there's a huge difference between in the beginning and in a beginning. In the beginning is finite, fundamentalist, this is the way it is, there's no wiggle room, there's no openness for interpretation, this is the story of record. In a beginning implies this is one way it could have happened for your consideration, which is really more the voice of the Spirit. That's why it says God as Spirit was vibrating. Vibration speaks to movement. Vibration is the opposite of being static. That's why we talked about last week that if you know anything about molecules, you know the chair you're sitting on is not actually solid. It's just we perceive it as something dense and solid in this dimension, but it's actually molecules that and atoms that, is it molecules or atoms? One of those things you see under a microscope that don't actually touch everything. I mean, it's amazing that you can get in your car and drive anywhere because nothing is solid. We perceive it as being dense, but in another reality, it's in a parallel reality. It's everything's vibrating. Nikola Tesla, who was a great man, too bad his name has been hijacked for a name of a car, but I digress. But you know, his whole thing was everything in the universe is vibration. If you're going to understand anything in the universe, you have to understand vibration. And it's become one of those throwaway words, vibe, you know, send me good vibes. But it's actually very important. You can't really understand spiritual things if you don't understand vibrations. Okay, I'm going to show you. These are three different parts of three different meditations I wrote this week that'll make my point. Here's the first one. I wrote, raise your vibration today. It's never too late for a new beginning. Now, this is the reason I want to teach this month. You know when you go to get an eye test and you have to put your chin on that thing and they show you, there'll be like a little drawing. It seems like it's a barn and looks like a very simple barnyard, but they show you the ophthalmologist, is that what it is? They keep going through different versions of it till you find the one that is the most focused. Does that make sense? But they're all the same picture. And that's kind of what I'm seeing prophetically. I want you to think abstract, and I want you to get these. You know, it's the same thing, but different. You know, better. You know, it's like, you know, they ask you that, which is it? And I want you to understand that concept because this isn't an ethereal teaching. This is very practical. The point being, we're all dealing with realities that challenge us. Come on. Everybody, I don't care how good life is, there's something in your life that you wish, you know, if it just wasn't for this one thing, y'all coming in. If it wasn't just for this one thing, everything would be perfect. And so I want to, come in. I want to submit to you that waiting for a thing to change may be a waste of time. I think you have to learn to look at it differently. You see what I'm saying? If somebody says, don't worry, it's going to get better, that's not the way life works, because when this gets better, there'll be something else that needs to get better. right? This morning, y'all, thank you for walking with me through these last months of telling you all my drama of living in the house, take care of my mom. When I went down to make coffee this morning, she was up. The other dog isn't moving this morning. I'm like, well, let God have his way. but she said, did you cancel church this morning? I said, no, why? She goes, well, the storm. I said, Mom, there's a hurricane out in the Atlantic, but I think we're okay. But that's the world she lives in. But this morning when I got in the shower, I turned on we've done so much. We worked all day long, gradually changing the upstairs, and Ken completely painted the room, and there's some really horrible tiger print carpet that's got to be moved. And I didn't even ask permission this morning. I went and picked out flooring. I said, Mom, so I want you to know, this is what I'm going to put in your room. I'm going to take your carpet out, and I'm also putting it in the room upstairs. I didn't even ask, are you cool with it? Because I'm like, I like a little bit of animal print, but she just went bananas when they moved in that house. Like, we got to bring that down just a little bit. Even yesterday when I was texting the flooring guy, I said, because the guy that did the tile in the foyer, I said, do y'all do this kind of flooring too? And so he texted my back and said, yeah, we do. And he said, what's in there now? And I showed him a picture. I said, some really horrible tiger print carpet. And he said, ooh, that is really wild. So we've just, Ken painted the entire room. We've changed stuff. We've got to put a light fixture up when we get back today, or he does. But but my point is, when I got in the shower today and turned on the hot water, immediately I was thinking, this is where all this started, is when Jared didn't tell me that this shower was on. But that's when all that damage happened, and I had to go through the insurance company, and it was that was the Sunday I came. Danny met me at the door. I could tell I didn't even take a shower that morning. I just put on a ball cap. And Howie's, what's your name? Danny said, good morning. I said, you got a cigarette? I mean, I was like, y'all just need to be happy I'm here today. Because I had me away. Because I didn't even want to move in that house. And now I got to deal with all this damage that happened because of that freaking shower that was left on. However, it turned out to be a real blessing. We ended up doing a lot of stuff to the house that I don't think I would have done otherwise. And after the insurance, actually made money on it. But it was still horrible. And I thought about it this morning. I thought it was horrible and wonderful. It wasn't either or. It was horrible and it was a blessing. It was like in Acts where Peter stands up on the day of Pentecost and he rebukes everybody. He says, you killed an innocent man. You should have never crucified Jesus. And in the next breath he says, and it happened exactly as God wanted. Like, how is that possible? The worst thing that ever happened to you is the best thing that ever happened to you. And I'm just going to tell you, and I'm not totally there yet. When I teach these things, it's because I'm trying to walk in it too. You've got to stop waiting for life to get better. It's a waste of time. It's elusive. You've got to learn to look through that lens and say, I've got to disconnect from the and start looking at the Because until I embrace the change is. Stop thinking about change. Change, it's elusive. It has to be refocusing. It has to be perception. You've got to look at it differently. Do you understand what I'm saying? In the beginning doesn't allow you, like this is the way it was. The earth is 6,000 years old. There was a white Jewish man floating up in the universe somewhere that spoke the world into existence. That's the way it was. There were no dinosaurs. That's why there was pterodactyls on the ark with Noah. Seriously, that's what fundamentalism does. And it sounds harmless and benign, but You got people seriously talking now about taking the vote away from women. The vote. And where does that come from? Because in the beginning says, I tell women to keep silence in the church. And women submit to your husbands. Fundamentalism is dangerous. The letter kills. The International Standard Version, I'm going to show you in a minute, says the written text kills. Does that mean we throw the Bible away? No. It means we look through the lens. Like, there's fundamentalism, but, oh wow, there's the Spirit. And lo and behold, the Spirit is vibrating, which means creation is ongoing. The universe is expanding. Come on now. I have fed y'all so well that you take this for granted. This would change most people's lives. Y'all are like, yeah, we've heard it. It's never too late for a new beginning. The Spirit is vibrating over the submerged chaos. Chaos is, not was. Creation is still in process. In a beginning, not in the beginning. The relationship between the Holy Spirit and quantum physics is a topic explored in both religious and scientific contexts, often leading to discussions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and the connection between the spiritual and material realms. Before I go on, let me say I'm not a physicist. The reason I'm comfortable talking about quantum physics is because even the people who are masters of quantum physics say we don't even fully understand it. The reason I think it's important, Newtonian physics is what goes up must come down. Quantum physics, once people began to look under the microscope, all the rules were changed. Now we understand, if I knock that off, Newtonian physics is going to make that fall on the floor. Not under a microscope. Under a microscope, two things can be true at once. Something can be there and it can be over there. Up is down. And it's important because science and spirituality are confirming one another. See? Thank you. Ken is making my point. That's Newtonian physics. Thank you. Your cue is perfect today. I said, now listen, when I say that, I want you to drop your phone at exactly... The relation, did I read that? Some interpretations suggest that the Spirit's role in creation as described in religious texts resonates with the foundational principles and phenomena observed in quantum physics, such as the interconnectedness of particles and the role of observation in defining reality. We've talked about this before. The observer effect, what they believe is the unified quantum field is just full of infinite potential. And the way you observe a thing determines how it's going to collapse into your reality. In other words, you make the Word made flesh. The way you see. That's why all through Old Testament and New Testament, God is constantly saying, how do you see this? What does this look like to you? My favorite one, which I refer to all the time, it's the only time I know of in the King James where they use an exclamation point, is Joshua chapter 6. I think we talked about it one day. Where after Israel had been in the wilderness for 40 years, they finally get back to Jericho, and it says Jericho is shut up. Like there's nobody coming in, nobody going out. In other words, it looked exactly like it looked 4 decades earlier. And Joshua 6:1, God says, see, exclamation point, I have given you the city. Like, you know, if I were Joshua, I would think, is this, am I being punked? Is this a practical joke? Like, you are aware we have been in the wilderness for 40 years waiting to occupy this, and now we get here and it looks exactly like it did, and you're like, see, I've given you the city. And you want to say, Joshua, don't answer this wrong, or you're going to be another 40 years. And the whole thing about he goes in and they march around the city 7 times and the walls fall. But if you don't see it, it's never going to happen. I know this is said so much now it becomes cliche, but I'm telling you, perception is reality. Everything, at least in everybody's in their own reality. But what's in your reality is how you see it. And You think you're not creating it? Yeah, you are. If you're not creating it, you're at least agreeing with what's happening and galvanizing it, which is the whole purpose of calling those things which are not as though they are. I mean, it feels absurd to call a curse a blessing. It's counterintuitive. How could this possibly be a blessing? And you got to keep looking through that viewfinder until you find this. My God, there's a blessing in here somewhere. If we have to stay here all day long, I'm going to find some place in here where all things are working together. And I'm probably going to have to do it again tomorrow, because perception, it's not like a thing that you flip on a switch and like, oh, I see everything great now. No, you're going to get up tomorrow and you're going to feel stuff again. You're like, all that progress I made yesterday seems to be 40 years in the wilderness that don't mean anything. And Spirit says to you, see, I have given you whatever. You're like, sure, I see that. Okay, let's go with that. Okay? Some interpretations of Genesis 1:1 suggest that the Hebrew phrase bereshit is better translated as in a beginning rather than in the beginning, implying a broader concept of beginnings. This interpretation suggests the possibility of other beginnings before or after the one described in Genesis. Some interpretations of the biblical creation story, particularly Genesis 1:2, where the Spirit of God moves upon the waters, are seen as analogous to the shaking or fluttering energy fields observed in quantum physics. This is why this is important. When something vibrates, it means it's alive, it's not static. There's possibility for something to manifest in a different way. It's important that you get that. How can two things be true at once? Just this week, it was in my memories, you know, the story I've told you ad infinitum about when we lost our stuff at Deep Creek and I got it back. It was 6 years ago. I can't believe that. But I had forgotten. Howie reposted the video I did about it, and I watched it. And I'd forgotten that the day before, it's when I just started talking about meditation. And the day before, I talked about inhaling and exhaling, and I said, I want you to think of it this way. Inhaling is believing for the best. Exhaling is, I'm going to be okay no matter what happens. Inhaling is, we believe God will deliver us from this fiery furnace. Exhaling is, even if he doesn't, we're not bound to Nebuchadnezzar. So that word was so fresh in me that when I lost, in case you don't know, it's called Deep Creek. It's actually a little river, and it's not the Colorado River, but it's got some white water on it. And we were in these tubes that had bottoms to them, but I had all of my stuff, my watch, my wallet, my phone. I don't think my keys were in there, but every other important thing was in a Ziploc bag, my glasses, and the thing flipped over, and I lost everything. And there was no, I went to a park ranger, and she said, when you lose stuff in there, we never find it again. We couldn't even stand up in the water. Like we were, that's how, that part of it, we're screaming at each other over the roar of the water. I lost all my stuff. But because I just taught that the day before, two scenarios were coexisting. They were fluttering. They were vibrating. You understand what I'm saying? And we did the best we could to look for the stuff, but basically anybody would say goodbye to your stuff, you're never going to find it. So I had already told Ken, I said, you're going to have to take tomorrow off because I'll have to start everything. I've got to go get a driver's license. I've got to cancel my credit cards. I've got to go get a phone. I mean, I've just got to start life over again. And I stood out there on the riverbank and expressed gratitude because it was a beautiful day. And it was Howie and Jerry and Ken and me, and they had packed a wonderful picnic for us. And I thought, I'm not going to ruin this day over this. We're going, we drove up here from Georgia to North Carolina to enjoy this, and So we stayed for about another 3 hours, and then I told the guys, I know you've heard it before, just bear with me. I said, Stephanie hasn't heard it. And she's looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't even know. I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing it for Stephanie. She was confused. She was like, I don't understand. What is he talking about? We got in the car. I said, I'm going to tell y'all something, and this is going to sound like I'm saying two different things, but I just need to make this statement. I am fine if I never get this stuff back. It's fine. It's an imposition. I'll take care of it, you know. There was a check that I needed to deposit that was in that wallet, and I needed to deposit that check tomorrow, but it's not the end of the world. It's only money. I said, so I'm going to let it go. I'm also going to tell you, and y'all are going to think I've lost my mind, but before midnight tonight, I'm going to have all of my stuff, and my Apple Watch is going to be working. Everything's going to be. How can those two things be true? So we got in the car, drove back to Atlanta. Am I exaggerating? Is that exactly how it happened? Stephanie, we get all the way back to Blairsville. I'm in the bathroom. I hear Ken on the phone. He says, they found your stuff. I'm like, they? Who's they? He said, it's your mom. I said, Mom? How does she... Like, dear, where can I go from her presence? Like that... How I can't possibly connect the dots on this one to her. How does she know about this? Good God. There's an old CNI. I'm like, I can't hide anything from her. But what happened was a scuba diver from Savannah decided to drive up that day and dive in the river. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know it was deep enough to even dive in the thing. But that's apparently a thing that, like, scavengers will go, like, they'll find, you know, like the way people on the beach do with a metal detector. Guy drives up there, didn't even know what Siri was. He sees the plastic bag behind a bolt. We met him. We drove up there, about an hour and a half back up there again. He emptied the water out of the bag. Siri, which to this day I don't know how it happened because you have to say, hey Siri for it. But Siri said, here's something you can do. Say, call Mom. So he didn't even know what it was. He said, call Mom. So it rings, Mom answers, and he said, I think I found your stuff on the bottom of a river, your son's stuff on the bottom of a river in North Carolina. Of course, she immediately assumes we've died in an accident. But we drove up there. I got as much cash as I could out of the ATM and gave to the guy because I appreciated it so much. And my Apple Watch was still working. The ink on the check had not run. I had everything. We got back to Blairsville. That night we drove back home to the loft. We were pulling into the driveway at 10 till 12. And I said, Ken, I would just like to say, for the record, that I have all of my stuff before midnight tonight. Now, how can that be true? Because you also said you let it go. That's why. Because that's why people like Deepak Chopra said they talk so much about detaching from outcomes. Because if you're too focused on this is the way it has to happen, you're in the box of the. Did you hear that? The is very seductive. Everything would be okay if we would just get this money, or if the doctor would just say this, or if so-and-so would just, like everything would be okay if just that would happen. So now you've limited to yourself to THE. Energy fields observed in quantum physics. Concepts like quantum entanglement, where particles are linked regardless of distance. And the idea that particles exist in a superposition of states until observed, as in the double-slit experiment. I don't have the vocabulary to explain the double-slit experiment, but this is how I understand it. There's a difference between waves and particles. And Google it. You can look if you're interested. It's easy to find a description of it. But what happens is when the light goes through these two different places, if you see that they're a wave and a particle at the same, like two things are true at the same time. And until we could see that under a microscope, we thought everything was either or. But guess what? Everything in the universe is yes and. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your body a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Which is it? Yes. All three are potentially manifesting in your reality simultaneously. The multiverse is real. Parallel realities are real. And you're constantly determining which one you're going to walk in. The viewfinder. This is the way the day looks. What about this? Better, 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 better. All right. Are sometimes used to draw parallels to spiritual concepts like interconnectedness, divine presence, and the nature of consciousness. Some theologians and scientists have explored whether the concept of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit can be understood through the lens of quantum mechanics, particularly the idea of something being one and many at the same time. I know I always say this when I talk about this, but I think it's important. The kind of Pentecostalism that Eddie was in when he was a full-time minister was what they called oneness, Jesus only. I was in Trinitarian Pentecostalism. His people said, my people believed in a three-headed God. My people said they're in a cult because they deny the Trinity. My professors in college said, if you try to understand the Trinity, you'll lose your soul. If you try to if you deny the Trinity, you'll lose your soul. If you try to understand the Trinity, you'll lose your mind. That was our thought. Because it's never going to make sense to the natural mind. That's why when I finally sat down, I know I've told you this before, I sat down with somebody that came out of oneness, and they explained to me their take on Acts 2:38 and why they baptize in Jesus' name. I thought, oh, I understand what you're saying. That's not either or. I believe in there's power in the name of Jesus. Okay, I get that. Which is why, especially back in the day when I was still immersing people. Now, if I baptize you at all, we're just going to walk in the edge of the water and I'm going to sprinkle you. Because I ain't got to prove no theological thing to people who are married to the. I'm an There
you go.
I'm A-list. But what I used to do to cover all my bases, because those the people get real particular about the way you baptize. I talked to a oneness guy who said when you put them under, if you don't get their nose totally under the water, they're not saved. I mean, he genuinely believed that. Wow. So I would say, on profession of your faith, I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. In the name of Jesus, we're going under and up, and there's a sprinkle. All right? Everybody happy? I followed all of the formulas because it's the same thing. The role of observer in quantum mechanics, where observation can affect the state of a particle, is sometimes linked to the idea of human consciousness and its potential influence on reality. Drawn parallels with spiritual practices focused on intention and belief. Back to Genesis 1:1 in the Concordant. Who said, let there be light? Who was it? The who? The Elohim. Do you believe in one God? Yes. Do you believe in multiple gods? Yes. Because they're all the same. Even whether you believe that demons are real or not, however you interpret that scripture, when Jesus goes to the man at Gadara, what does the demon say? My singular name is Legion, for we, plural, are many. Why do you think when I commend BJ for being a multitasker, he breaks into a chorus of I'm every woman? Because what he's joking, but what he's saying is, I rise to the occasion. Whatever you need me to be. You hear that? Yes. Who was the guy out there wanting to fight for my parking space? The guy that's my photographer. That's not his job description. Why? Because I'm everyone. Do you understand? Yes. Like, when you got married, you didn't stop being a woman. No. When you had children, you didn't stop being a wife. When your children had children, you didn't stop being a mother. No. You're all of those things simultaneously.
And was a soldier at the same time.
And you could go on. You're not limited to one. Who are you? Well, I'm a lot of things. My name is Legion, for we are many.
That's right. That is absolutely.
That's why when people get too finite about this is the way God is, go on in, and there's no wiggle room. That's why there's so much exclusion.
That's right.
Because if you don't understand the concept of Elohim, you can never embrace inclusion, because everything's either or. We're the right ones, y'all are the wrong ones. That's why in John chapter 10, Jesus says to his disciples, he says, look, I've got sheep and other pastures you don't even know anything about. You don't know they exist. He said, but they're all going to come together, and they're all going to have one shepherd. Bishop, that sounds like universalism. Duh, you think? Exactly. All right. Did I read all that? All right, let's go to the next one, please. In the beginning and in a beginning are both valid phrases, but they have different nuances. In the beginning typically refers to the start of a specific known period or event, often implying a contrast with a later state. In a beginning is more general, suggesting the start of any event or story, and can sometimes imply a more open-ended or multiple possibilities for beginnings. The often quoted, much misunderstood words of Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life, is better translated, in my opinion, this way. Jesus said, my I amness mirrored in you is your way. This is your truth and also your life. Every single person can now come face to face with the Father entirely because of my doing. This is John chapter 14:6 in the Mirror translation. Stop right there. Why is that important? Buddy, if you've ever been in a Bible argument with somebody about inclusion versus exclusion, they're gonna John 14:6 you. Jesus said, I am the way. That's not what he said at all. It was another way of him saying, take up your cross and follow me. He was basically saying, live my example. I'm going to show you the way that everything that I've done, the way that I told you, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, all these things, you've got to do those same things too. Why else would he say, it's necessary for you that I go away? If I stay here, you're never going to see that you're me. Even, I've never met Kay Fairchild. I follow her on Facebook. We're not totally on the same page about anything, but the woman's brilliant. And she posts nearly every day about why blood sacrifice wasn't necessary, and it's really, I mean, I admire her courage because she has to fight for it. But she, I don't remember that she's ever commented on any of my posts. On this one, she commented, and she said in the Aramaic, it doesn't say the. It basically confirms exactly what I was saying here. He basically said, I am way. Bishop, are you saying Jesus is a way? Yes. And Jesus would back me up on that. And let me just say, I need to, for the sake of the court, I need to have this entered into the record. I know all that stuff about, and there's other people on Facebook that I follow them that I'm like, you make some really good points. I'm not, I'm in a little bit different flow, but your take on things is not a deal breaker. I know all that stuff about Mithra, like there were people before Jesus, like they had a virgin birth and 12 disciples, and even like when you go, like the ancient Aztecs had a story of the flood. I mean, a lot of these, there's a story in the Incas about the upper room. So there's a lot of lore that was all around the world that came into the Bible. And I know, like even, remember when the Olympics were in Paris last time, and they did a thing about Dionysus, and they showed just a clip of it. People thought it was drag queens making the Last Supper, which my point is, so what if it was? Clutch the pearls. Well, fasten your seatbelt. God loves drag queens. And I'm not saying that as an LGBT man. That's not even my jam. When people say let's go to a drag show, I'm like, I mean, I've been to a few. I mean, there's some talent. We went to some in New York that were unbelievable, cool, talented. Not really my thing, but it's not because I'm judging them. I'm like, whew, that's a lot of work. You got to go and put that makeup on. Like, if that's your thing, namaste. But the point is, people just freaked out over that. And because Dionysus, what he did was the god of wine, very similar to the Last Supper, and this is my body and all that kind of stuff. I know all of those things. I still think there's something special about Jesus. I do. Yes. And I believe in a literal resurrection. I do. I think some people are surprised at that because they think I'm so progressive in my theology. I'm like, no, I mean, I don't think the cross was necessary in the sense that traditional Christians have thought. Otherwise, Jesus wouldn't have said, if this is some other way, let this cut pass from me. But he did it, and he didn't do it to appease an angry sky god. He did to change our self-perception. But when you say he rose on the third day, I'm like, okay. Because I'll tell you something. And this may surprise you. Because I don't lead a lot of worship. I don't. When we go to Judah's church, I mean, Judah's name means worship. So, I mean, I'm sure they'll do worship. That's more power to him. That's what he does. I'm in a different headspace. However, Friday, I was driving home in the rain. He was coming in, which he's not going to. They're not going to let him stay out there anymore. So he's going to be coming home every night now. Be driving every night. He know because he the only one. I'm sorry. I haven't done Color Purple in a long time. That was your free shot. But I was coming home. I was in the rain, and I love. Speaking of Color Purple, I love the singer Tata Vega. She's the one that in the original Color Purple movie, when Suge Avery is singing, it's Tata Vega's voice. This sings Sister, and God is trying to tell you something. She's incredible. She used to travel with Andre Crouch. And I hadn't heard her in a long time. So I was just, for some reason, I thought of her, and I just said, Alexa, play Tata Vega. And the song, she came on singing, "Oh, it is Jesus.
Yes.
Yes, it is Jesus. It is Jesus in my soul. For I have touched the hem of his garment, and his blood has made me whole." I'm sobbing in the car. Man, it struck a nerve in me. Now, does that mean I'm going to bring in a worship team this week? No. I believe in this.
Yes. Yes.
But that's me too.
Me too.
It's not either or.
Yes.
Rutherford messaged me. He said, he said, "I'm embarrassed to say this to you, but is it bad that I listen to Bill Gaither music sometimes and cry?" I said, no. I totally get it. You know what? They spoke into existence in. We were in St. Simon's because Howie and Robert are like my two best friends, but they've only met once before 7 years ago, so they had more of a time to connect this time, and Howie was kind of blown away at Robert's ability to move in the gifts of the Spirit. We were even talking last night that Janelle, that lives in North Carolina, who was there, whose son committed suicide. I don't know the details, but her exact words were, "It was horrible." It's the kind of it's horrible. But Robert didn't know anything about it, and he said, "I'm hearing some other voice." What was her son's name?
Justin.
Huh? Justin. Justin?
Justin.
He said, somebody saying, "Justin told me to give you this," and he gave her a bracelet. I mean, we all nearly passed. That upper room, y'all didn't come this last one. Y'all are suckers. You didn't come this last one. Y'all missed it. Pardon me. But what was weird is, and Robert didn't know this, she said he used to make all this jewelry. He made goth jewelry with skulls and everything, and this one was different. It was pearls with a cross on it. It was one of those moments you really had to have been there. But the point is, because Robert's not in a place where he's able to operate in that a lot. So I was really making a demand on his gift, and I said, give a word to people, and he's giving words of knowledge, and they've got their place out there in Eatonton where we've done a couple of meetings out there, and Howie was talking. He said, "You know what I'd love more than anything in the world is for us to have like a Pentecostal type camp meeting without all of the legalism."
Yes.
And I said, "Well, it's going to happen at Robert's place sometime." Howie said, "Just tell me, I will be in the car immediately," because he said, "I miss that."
Yes.
Yeah.
What got you emotional? Which part?
Just the way Robert pulled that out of his pocket. Said, "So, Justin told me to give you this."
And that he said, it's a different voice. I'm hearing God speak to me, but somebody named Justin just said this to me. Mm.
Yeah, he didn't even know his name.
What?
He didn't know his name.
No.
He heard the voice and told him his name.
That's why one time, I don't really talk to Jeremy Lopez that much, but Jeremy operates in, prophecy and stuff. And he said they were in Las Vegas and they went to see that Jonathan Edwards, or one of those guys that talks to people who have crossed over. And he said, I felt like he was doing the same thing I do. I said, because he was. I mean, it's a prophetic word. I mean,
Didn't Justin do, she said that Justin made jewelry too, didn't she? He did that too. So that
he
was
did
how-
what?
Justin also made jewelry.
That's my point. Yes.
And she said that was something that you would probably have made.
That was the whole thing was just amazing.
And you know what, Jim, that whole meditation might have been for that lady to come
Totally.
to St. Simon's and for her moment, and we just all got to be.
And to that point, and this makes my point about the vibration. We've had some. I've had enough things where I've been able to speak to the weather, and got good results. That it nearly became a knock. I mean, years ago, I mean, people like, "Hey Bishop, we're doing a barbecue this weekend, and please speak to the weather." I'm like, I don't own the weather. It's like, stop. Like, I don't have any authority over your barbecue. Leave me alone. But the point is, there's sometimes, because I spoke to that weather that Saturday. I said, I really need this rain to stop. And I feel like Mother Nature just said, no, not today. And I was kind of glad. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to say something. You're going to have to bleep me on this. I don't want weather to be my bitch. I know. Do you understand? I know that's crude language, but I'm like, once in a while, I'm glad that God pushes back and says, no, I'm going to be sovereign on this. Like most times, I want you to, say peace, be still. But sometimes you just need God to be like, yes, sir. Do you hear what I'm saying? And I'm sorry I said that word, but I have to make that point, because you can't be arrogant about that kind of stuff.
Like in Deep Creek, you talk about vibration. That guy told you your bag could have been vibrating in that water because he looked around that rock and he saw the corner of that bag flapping.
What? Whew. That's why, I've used this analogy before, but I've said when you're co-creating with God, it's a dance. And sometimes God leads, and sometimes you lead. And either extreme is wrong. If you just say, I don't have any control over everything, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, God is sovereign, that's not good. If you just think, I'm controlling everything, that's not true either. There's a sweet spot in the middle of those two things, and it's in the middle of the vibration. Do you understand? It's the two realities, or the three realities, or the quantum physics says there may be 11 different universes. I don't know how they discover it, but they used to say there were 3. Now they're saying it's 11 or maybe even more. Because all this potential is happening to you every day of your life. That's why you're wasting your time waiting for it to change or to get better. The Spirit is vibrating now. The miracle is here now. If you're waiting for something in the future, you're looking for in the beginning.
Yeah, because you're trying to set it up. Wow. Instead of waiting on an now moment to happen, trying to set it up.
When you focus obsessively on the of it all, you miss the context of what he was actually saying. Words matter. The written text brings death, but the Spirit gives life. That's 2 Corinthians 3:6 in the International Standard Version. The 4 Gospels give entirely different accounts of the resurrection of Jesus, the only constant in the story being that he emerged alive from the tomb. There is no the story, no official telling of record of the event. Matthew has a resurrection story, as does Mark, Luke, and John. And I quoted this, that's Hebrews 4:12, for the word of God is quick, which means alive, and powerful. It's a living, vibrating thing that cannot be contained in, confined in, or limited to any written text. Now, I'm telling you, like somebody a while back took me to lunch and they wanted to ask me, it's not at all what I thought they were going to ask, but they said, I want to get your take, because they believe in reincarnation. And they said, what do you think about it? I said, I'm neutral on it. I mean, I've seen some things on YouTube. We've talked about it. Some of these little kids that are describing being in a battle in Paris, and there's no way this kid would have known that. I don't know. I know Jesus said, y'all might not understand this, but John the Baptist is Elijah. He didn't say he came in the Spirit. He said he is him. So I don't know. But what I told this person, I said, I believe in reincarnation in the sense of going from glory to glory. Like if I die on one level and I'm raised as I've been through things that changed me, and I as to where am I going to come back as a monkey or something, I don't necessarily believe that. But I don't disbelieve it enough to argue with you about it. Do you understand? It's like, that's why I tell you, I was 13 when I started preaching, and I always joke about it, but it's not really a joke. I said, I knew everything back then. I said, it was incredible. You should have met me. The older you get, you find out agnostic's not a bad word. I don't like the word atheist, but agnostic just means, could be. Because I'm telling you, I love God now more than I ever did, but it's not the God I grew up with. I was afraid of the God I grew up with. So what changed? I changed. God was always that. The Elohim was always that. The Spirit's always been vibrating. Just because you came late to the party doesn't mean it just started with you. If you find your comfort in the absoluteness or finiteness or fundamental legalness of in your belief system, I have no argument with you. I sincerely say namaste to you, and I'm not interested in arguing about it. Been there, done that. But if you believe in the possibilities of the I speak a blessing over your adventures in God today. All things are possible. And show me this next one. In a beginning is perhaps a more accurate translation than the more familiar in the beginning. It really opens up a lot to think about, especially when exploring the concepts of multiple realities, what some call the multiverse, and the embracing of yes and instead of either or. The best part of this Hebrew translation, however, is, in my opinion, yet the spirit of the Alueim is vibrating over the surface of the water. The Spirit is vibrating, not was vibrating, is. Now, present tense, God is in the now. The Creator's universe is still expanding, still being created faster than the speed of light. And here's, let he who has ears, let he or she who has an ear hear. If this is too much for you, accept what you can. What if you've had and exercised the dominion that God or Elohim or Alueim talks about in Genesis 1, 26, 27 all along? That's where he says, let us make people in our image and let them have dominion. Okay? What if you've been calling the shots in life and getting what you really deeply wanted or thought you deserved more than you've realized or can even admit to yourself? That's a hard one. Ernie, every time I say something like that, I think about Leona saying, where else could we go? We're grown folk. We can't go hear people say stuff because you tell us stuff that grown folk have to hear. Because that's what ministers that pander to you and coddle you will not tell you that. They're like, if they don't blame God, they blame the devil. They always take it off you. And blame's not the word I'm looking for. But you remember when Job's friends came to him and they said, Job, God didn't do this to you. And Job says, well, if he didn't, who did? He was completely unaware of the concept of a Satan. And I'm like, you might want to check out that first chapter, Job, because God and the devil are having a big poker game with, with your life in it. I believe Job was an allegory. I don't think it was literal. But it's terrifying to think that God and Satan are just like, all right, you can totally destroy her, just can't kill him. I'm like, wow, God, that's cold. Yeah, you can kill his children, you can do it, but just don't, gee, thanks. And finally, at the end it's the ultimate humanist manifesto. At the end, God comes out of the whirlwind and he says, Job, I didn't do this, Satan did this, Deck yourself with majesty. And even those final things when he says those things, he's saying it nearly as an indictment, because he says, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" And it's kind of like, who do you think you are? But then in the very next breath he says, "But you are doing it." He says, "Command me, and you have to change this." Now, you may hear this and go, "Dear God, Bishop, what else could I be doing? I'm doing everything I possibly can." I know you are. I'm not. If you're hearing this as an indictment, you're not hearing what I'm saying. Because believe me, I don't like everything in my life or the way everything's happened. And to think that's why that whole idea of, we chose to come here and we saw everything ahead of time, I'm ambivalent on that. Bishop Pearson used to preach that. We chose to come here, and you can get through anything because obviously the eternal part of you knew it was going to happen. And there's a part of me that's like, "Oh no, I would have never. I would not have chose that." However, there's a part of me that thinks something about that does sound it does kind of make me feel empowered on days when I think this is overwhelming me. I like to think, well, I must have seen this. The I am part of me must have seen this coming, so I guess I can get through it. Or I wouldn't have signed up for it. I can't make that a doctrine, but sometimes I think, yeah, okay. Then other times I'm like, the devil is a lie. I didn't have nothing to do with this. You've just at least got to be, if you want a thing to get better, you've at least got to be willing to admit that you may have played a role in it. And if you're not, and that goes for your relationships that went south. Oh no, that was all his fault. You can't. That's not the way the world is. Even if it was just you were stupid enough to marry him in the first place, then that's on that. Do you know what I mean? You're gonna have to own some part of that story. Yeah, I thought I'd lose some of my congregation on that one. What if the same spirit that vibrated over the surface of the water in creation is still vibrating over your spirit and your thoughts and your words and your intentions? In John 1:1, the Caboris manuscript, which is Aramaic, it does use the beginning. But instead, that's where he says, "In the beginning was the Word." What he says there, he says, "In the beginning was," in the English it says, "in the Word." In the Greek it says, "In the beginning was the Logos." In the Aramaic, this is what it says. This is John 1:1. "At the very beginning there was willed action, and the willed action then was by God," or Allah. "And God was that willed action." The beginning was by God. "All was by him, and without him was not a single thing came into being out of that which was. From him there came into being a perfect life, and this perfect life became light unto all men. And this light out of darkness caused light, and darkness did not overcome. And willed action became flesh and dwelt among us, and we saw glory as if begotten from the Father, completely filled with heavenliness and righteousness." I remember even, he's in a different space now, but I used to listen to Kenneth Copeland a lot in my early development. And I remember even him he's the first person I ever heard use, was it 2 Timothy 1:6, where he says he's the Savior of all men, especially them that believe. And I remember I was at a meeting and he said, "Not everybody can receive this, but the whole world's saved. They just don't know it yet." I was like, huh? What? And but I remember in another teaching he said, like I can't listen to him now. It's a very different place. But back then, he said Jesus had to come because the prophets of old prophesied that he would come. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because I was always taught he was coming and the prophets just picked up on it. But what he said, I thought, wow, that's very interesting. It's like they spoke Jesus into existence, which means they spoke the need for atonement into existence. Because when Jesus actually came, now y'all listen to me. I know it's getting late, but y'all hang on me because it's the best sermon you've ever heard in your entire life. When he actually came, Jesus says, now you are clean to the word I've spoken to you. He didn't talk about cross or blood or anything. But Isaiah said he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquity. So it's like those people that came out of a history of blood sacrifice spoke a paschal lamb into existence. God is who you say God is in your life. If you wonder why so-and-so getting blessed all the time, that's just the way they see the world. They see God as they that come to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. People who think God's blessing them all the time, guess what? They just get blessed all the time. And they see a blessing in everything. Somebody gives them back too much change and like, he rebukes the devourer for my sake. Does God like them better? No, they're making that happen. And those people that think God's mad at them, they're creating their own punishment. Jesus said to the adulterous woman, where are your accusers? I don't have any. Well, you're good to go then. I don't condemn you. That's one of the commandments. Don't commit adultery. Well, Jesus is like, I'm just giving you two. Love God, love your neighbor. Yeah, that was the problem, Jesus. She was loving her neighbor. But that honestly, that's why I don't argue with people about theology anymore. Because even somebody called me this week, who I haven't talked to in a long time, who actually said to me, I just need to know, is hell real? And I said, you know what? For some people, maybe it is. I said, I'm so exhausted arguing with people over hell. I've done schools of the Bible. I've done people that are married to that idea. They can't let it go. So I said, I believe so much in the multiverse now and parallel realities. I think for some people, if that's your thing, if you need a God that sends people to hell, maybe for you it is real. It's not for me. I don't live in a God consciousness that involves hell, but some people do. And do y'all hear what I'm saying? They're making that happen. The God you're praying to is the God you have in your mind. And if you think that God is on your side, you'll read something like the whole universe is conspiring to, and you're like, that's right, it's all working out for me, baby. If you think it's the last days and all these terrible things will happen, you're bringing that on yourself. You started to say something, Eddie, what? You just going to say something a minute ago.
Just all that you're saying just shows how powerful we are.
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
God is who we say God is.
Baby,
How powerful is that?
I'm telling you.
And to your point, being raised up in fundamentalism, we were hindered because we were made to believe our sins separated. Andy Griffin showed that.
And it was the undergirding of everything. It affected everything.
They wanted a doctrine that separated us from God.
That's why even a few months ago when I talked about Jacob wrestling with the angel, Fred, you were talking to me afterwards. You said, don't you think he was actually wrestling with his higher self? And I said, yeah, I do think that. I do think that.
I was thinking about a scripture the other day. And I said, no graven images of him. And I said, oh, I got you now. Because if his graven is dead.
Oh, that's good.
He don't want no graven images. And if it's dead, it can't be lived.
That's good.
So when you look in the mirror, you're seeing God because he's living in you.
Well, that's the whole thing. We've talked about this before. Where King James says, now we see through a glass darkly, but the Greek actually says, now we see in a mirror dimly. So as your perception of God improves, you see it's God looking back at you. Man. All right. In one sense, the concept of this and the responsibility that comes with it can feel overwhelming. But in another sense, it's the most empowering revelation imaginable. It allows the eradication of victimization mentality in your life from every possible vantage point. It can cause you to embrace some radical concepts about personal God-given authority, to hold things together by the word of your power. The reason I said that is, in Hebrews it says he holds all things together by the word of his power. That's true for you as well. God spoke his worlds into existence. You speak your world into existence. He holds all things together by the word of his power. You hold all things together by the word of your power. And set you free from the need to blame, project, or feel powerless to live your best life. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells in you. You are not separated. It's all been an illusion. Paul wrote to the church, he said, you were alienated from God in your minds. Moses says, the Creator says, who told you you were naked? All right, let's finish this up. Dan DeMarquez says this. When you were going on a spiritual path, as I explain it, you were basically raising your vibration. You then begin to understand me better, not by belief, but through your own experiences. It's like what you said to me that time. You and I are going through very different things, and yet you said, in a crazy way, when you share about your experience, I interpreted it into mine. And you said, nobody's ever said this before, you said, I feel like I put my hand in your wounds. Like the way Thomas said, unless I said, I have to go now. I had in the conversation and said, mind blown. That's why you can't understand, some of y'all, like, let's take our relationship, for example. Some of you vibed with me the first time you ever heard me. You brought friends and relatives that were like, I don't get it. What is the deal? He just tells a bunch of stories, and it's because I'm not on the frequency with them. And the people who you're supposed to connect with, no external thing can break that vibration. You connected with them immediately. What? You then begin to understand me better, not by belief, but through your own experiences. The spiritual path is the process of increasing your vibration. That is the meaning of seeing when others are blind, attracting better things that others don't think you can have, and more. All this is part of the process. The only thing you can't do is alter free will. People do have the free will to be stupid if they want to. It's their right to experience their stupidity. As a result, your evolution will take you anywhere, but that doesn't mean others will be there. That's the great paradox of any spiritual journey. This is why you can fight with people on Facebook over Donald Trump all you want to. If people are coming from a certain theological standpoint, all you're doing is I'm not telling you not to do it. I celebrate free speech and discourse. And I have my own way of liking on certain things. Like, I ain't going to post it, but I'm going to like on that. Word. And sometimes I'll send something to Howie and say, I ain't going to post this, but you might want to. But the point is, you can't reason, like people who have a theological understanding of why they believe in something, like people who think it's the last days, people who think the worst thing in the world is transsexuals. Like if that's what they really think, you can argue all that's like they're not on your vibration. I mean, you could do it. That's your right. But vibration is what rings true with people. And some people do change. Some people do evolve. But it's not because you coerce them into it. You can influence people. You can lead a horse to water. And maybe they'll drink, but you can't make them. Panache Desai says this. When your energy vibrates at a frequency that is within direct alignment to what the universe has been attempting to deliver your entire life, you begin to live in the flow and true miracles start to happen. That's why Wayne Dyer would say, the universe is not responding to what you want as much as it is to who you are being. Which is why, because really, if somebody said to me, give me a definition of vibration in one word, I can nearly say the word feeling. It's the way you feel about a thing. If you're going to go to the doctor, you better like your doctor. Because if you don't like him and you don't believe what he or she says to you, it's going to be, and I'm pro-medicine, but that's going to be counterproductive. If you dread seeing them, you've got to feel like these people know what they're doing and they're going to help me. They're going to help me get better. Otherwise, don't go, because your own power is going to be working against you. You have no idea how powerful you are.
Yes.
And out of the heart are the issues of life. So people are responding to you all the time. And it goes, racism's real, homophobia is real, misogyny is real, xenophobia, all those things are real. But some people are rejecting you because of something entirely different. It's too easy to say, oh, this is just because you don't like black people, or you don't like gay people, or you don't like Republicans. No, it's something different. Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's way deeper.
Yeah.
Is that too real? All right, let's wrap it up. This is so simple, but this is my omega to the alpha. Dr. Tony, I pray in words, God answers in vibrations. Let's all stand.
When you was talking about the and the that's what's wrong. When me and Reggie was having this conversation, he be in our conversations, but that was what's wrong with what's going on with the farmland and the people that voted the way that they voted. Because see, they were in the They don't know how to pivot. They didn't see the up. So they're losing. Because see, they thought that by voting the way they voted, the status quo was going to be the status quo. So they're losing everything because they didn't know how, they didn't see the world through the up.
I hear what you're saying.
So now they're like, they want people to understand why they're losing their farm, why Kansas is going bankrupt. And these other states are going to fall too, because they had all these.
It's not just farmlands. It's elderly people being ejected from nursing homes because their Medicaids have been cut
off. We had
off.
all these contracts with China to buy all your wheat and all of that, but then you look at us and you go, well, the price of our farm, our groceries are going up. They was like, well, we got all these produce. Why can't we sell them here? Because see, these contracts were made in the past. And why can't they just pivot? I said, because they didn't think this far. They didn't think what would happen if I lost this contract.
Which is why you have to, just in general in life, you have to be flexible. You have to be open. You have to say, I've never thought I would do this, but maybe I will. You know, I never thought I'd vote this way, but maybe I will. I never thought I'd marry this type of person, but maybe I will. Because the boxes you in, it says it has to be this way, and there's no...
It's just prejudice. It's a whole before.
Right.
It's you making an opinion
Right.
about something you don't even understand at this point.
Right.
You're just walking in there and saying this and that, and you don't even know what
Right.
the details are.
Right.
So now you want people to understand, and people are like, well, we have to pivot.
Right.
We have to look through us.
You are exactly right. Did you get anything out of this today?
Yes.
What?
You made the analogy of us with God as dance, and then something came to me, I got a middle. And then, so when you do a dance, usually the man dance one, right? So you dip is, you put your stuff in the water.
Oh, that's good.
You coming back up from the dip says,
That's good.
I'll have it tonight before midnight. Same situation. situation with the flood in the house. Everything, that's your dip. But when he brings you back up, you're back.
All right, y'all are getting too much revelation. Y'all need to bring it down a notch. Y'all are getting too much revelation with your dipping and your graven images. Just cut that out. I'm in charge here. Coming in here with revelation. Who do you think you are?
Welcome to the album.
All right, play the outro, please. It was good today, man.
Contributing to Metron is quick and easy. You can give any time using any smartphone. Text the amount you'd like to donate to 404-620-5044. You will then receive a notification that you successfully completed your donation. You may also visit bishinthenow.com and click the support tab to give there as well. When you contribute to Metron, you're also donating to the charity or organization of the month. Thank you for your investment into Metron.
If you're making a check, make it to JESM. If you have cash, just pay it forward. Next week, we'll do part 3 of it. Typically, the final installment of a series is usually the best. So I would advise you to be here next Sunday. I speak high vibrational, Christ is all and is in all, and that I bless the vibration of your thoughts, your words, your actions. It's going to be a beautiful day and a beautiful week. God bless you. Go in peace. See you next week.